VenomousStare, back with another exciting StarCraft 2 commentary. This time we have a very weird game that I just played, and I felt immediately compelled to cast it because of how ridiculous it was. In the top left here we have ASA, who is a guy that doesn't like me. Someone named Hello, who I had just played a game with right before. Guy in the 425 clan, No Bano. No B Way No. Who knows. I'm just gonna call him No Way. And then me here in the bottom left, with the glitched emblem. Shout out to Blizzard for being worthless. And this guy says I'm gonna drone rush, which is obviously very peculiar. Which anytime I've ever had anyone do that, they pull all their workers at the beginning and suicide them, usually out of spite or malice, and lose on purpose. So I asked this guy. Was it out of spite? Because there are people in the 2v2 ladder that don't like me, and vice versa, because in 2v2 you will queue up and play with the same people over and over and over. Well, some people just don't like me, and they will do shit like probe rush and lose on purpose and flame me the whole time. So I had to know if he was doing this as a legit strat, or out of spite, and it's a legit strat. And this is very interesting because this ASA guy is not particularly good. And this person from last game, Hello, we had like a long drawn out pretty good game that we won, where I was constantly harassed and she never helped. And then at the end of the match, as our armies were killing their base, she types 2v1. Like, I don't know why. But here we see the drones working on the pylon, and the second pylon is going up. The Lings are going to start to work on the gateway. That's a mistake. The Lings need to try to work on the probe. So we have to pause it briefly here to talk about early game micro, because since it's a 2v2, I can't actually explain all the scenarios fast enough. So whenever you're facing off against a Ling drone rush, or like a super quick pool build with just Lings, and you're trying to defend with zealots and probes, you want to get in a situation where you can stabilize and get back to mining as soon as possible. You don't want to run your probes and your zealot way out here off into the third. Now, how does 2-racks work on split base 2v2 situations? Well, you want to isolate your opponent. Often whenever you do a 2-racks, let's just say this is a 1v1 game. I would want to have the bunker in range of these initial buildings, and I would want to have the second one in range of the natural. You would always want to be aggressively pushing your bunkers as forward as possible. It's not really like that in 2v2 when your opponent's doing a hard commit all in. What we want to do is isolate this guy and prevent the red Zerg from helping him. The pool just recently finished for the red Zerg. He is making Lings. Now it is peculiar to me that the expansion is not finished, but whatever. We can see that the first bunker is being established, and Savagewood wants to establish his bunkers in such a way that prevent the Zerg from helping his ally, because this Ling drone combination with this bunker placement is going to be able to succeed, because the bunker on the low ground is just going to put so much pressure on the Protoss. So after his ally said, I'm probe rushing, Savagewood said, okay, I guess I'll 3-rack. So Savagewood 3-racks is in pretty much the closest place possible. They're third. This is a pretty good proxy spot, this and a little bit more behind the mineral line, because people really aren't going to scout that very frequently at all. Or if they do scout it, it's going to be too late. It's also very fast. This isn't really a good proxy map, as we can see the drone-Ling combo running around. This player should always just be fighting with the bunker, and we notice that the red Zerg here, what is he gonna do? What is Hello gonna do? It looks like he might just try to counterattack. But more action taking place on this high ground, as the blue army should be pulled back to the lip of this plateau. Drones and Lings fighting, and if we go to the units tab, 8 workers are alive here still, and just a handful mining in the main. Savagewood has completely isolated this red player, and he's going to aggress upon him. A little bit of stutter step micro, and whenever you micro marines with Lings, whenever the Zergling attacks and meets up with your opponent's units, you just focus fire, as we see all of the drones going down here. Probably some poor micro too. But once the Lings engage, you focus fire. You don't bother stutter stepping anymore, because obviously you're not being attacked. The Protoss ASA is being attacked here. Another bunker is going forward just in case. And more Lings are flooding across the map to finish the Zerg. Savagewood does have his full wall off that can be repaired. Roachwarren is coming up. Usually whenever someone is going Roachwarren, they're going to make as few Banelings as possible. An emergency barracks going up in Savagewood's main, presumably just so he can get a unit behind his wall. The Lings are pushing forward saying, well maybe, okay, now that we're met up with our team, we can go. Remember, no Ling speed here as the gas was never taken. Slowlings and Banelings, or Speedlings and Banelings demolish Slowlings. Savagewood just needs to lead the way here and make sure he's always firing upon building Banes as the main priority, and then it goes just attacking units. Savagewood stutter stepping forward. As Overlords are coming out, Hello was reaching a supply block, and ASA just decides to leave the game. Remember, he doesn't really have anything but a handful of probes. Savagewood mows down a queen. There the probes are, they're spread out a bit. And Savagewood is going to run into the nick and cranny of the minerals and survive a little bit, do as much damage as possible, be as obnoxious as possible, which is very important when you have 2 racks. The blue Zerg, no way, has 2 hidden drones and 1 base that's not mining and is being patrolled. A little bit of sloppy micro as this should probably be attacking. Although they could have potentially just been waiting for drones to come back, so I guess it's not really truly sloppy. 13 workers here for Hello. The 7 workers for the Protoss that has left ASA. They've got nothing to mine with though. But Hello has quite a bit of gas to work with and a relatively decent amount of workers. I mean, he's facing someone at 2 racks and someone who's pretty much dead. So in a way, it's sort of like a cutesy 1v1 with Savagewood and a guy who doesn't have any buildings and has a couple drones. Savagewood's Safety Marine coming up big as he has a factory made, and it's probably going to do a swapperoo with the reactor here, because it's very common for players that have been rushed to go into Ling Bane and try to get aggressive. And Savagewood sends his ally 300 minerals, even though he's only on 1 base, so he could expand to the gold. You always want to do this in 2v2 as quick as possible. You always want to get your ally back in the game. You always want to put them in a position where they're contending. You don't want to have an ally, as we see some slow Banelings move out here. Remember, no lair yet here. You don't want to have an ally who's down and out, who literally can't do anything. Maybe if you trust him, you give him control of your units. But then if you ever have conflicting ideas, then that can be a problem. So even if it's long shot stuff like this hatch, you definitely want to get them involved. Banelings are coming up here. Savagewood has next to no units. A Widow Mine is not going to be able to fire as it perpetually retargets onto the different Banes. And poor reinforcement here as Hello didn't have the rest of his army up with his Baneling bust, which is just such a newbie maneuver. And of course, once he throws his reserves across the map, Savagewood is going to have a little bit of time to repair. Remember, you can't lower building depots, so this SCV is probably going to be a little spotter, and he builds a spotter depot. Savagewood has made a couple more Hellions. He does have the mine, and we saw there that the mine had trouble hitting anything because it always was trying to focus Banelings, and the Banelings blew up before it could. That's why the Widow Mine didn't just kill everything. And the Widow Mine should probably be repaired here at some point, as a player who does maneuvers like that is pretty likely to do another maneuver like that again. So you always want to keep your Widow Mines at high health. The barracks have made their journey back from the opponent's third. Hello does have a decent drone count. He needs to saturate his gas better. And no way says, okay, he's going Roach. Probably a small army. Like, let's see, what is he basing this on? These bunkers, I guess. So these bunkers are going to be cleaned up, and this is something that I really believe in, unless the opponent goes for lots of Ravagers. is if you do a successful bunker rush, you want to leave the bunkers up. You really don't want to salvage them. Unless it's just a way overkill bunker that doesn't cut off anything. But bunkers like that, even when I was aggressive with the main army and lost most of it, leaving one marine in each bunker was still a pain in the ass, and it limited, sort of, this base from being taken because he's going to have to rally stuff in a weird way. So it crippled this base, but it cut off these two bases from being retaken. So it was a big pain in the ass. And it of course gave me map control, which is huge. This gold base does have a few workers after Savage Wood sent him over some more minerals. Lair is being established for Hello, and his natural is alive and kicking. A drone is hidden along with the Ling. Hello has a Ling patrolling here, which is nice to see. And he has actually taken this bottom base with one of ASA's old probes. So this has gotten a little bit wacky if we go to the Units tab. Remember, with a very aggressive drone rush like that, you're not going to have a lot of overlords. There's not a lot of map control, pretty much, period, here. As Hello has run his stuff over and started to steal the blue bases. Very interestingly, that little proxy could have led him to do this in some way. As he has pushed up here, he's going to get ASA's probes working, building another base. Now this is what you want to do whenever your ally leaves early. Whether he gets his main destroyed or not, you want to basically use him for income or just use him for a simple unit composition. But you do want to try to take advantage of it even though you can't see the supply of what your ally has. So it really sucks when you're behind, but you want to hope that whenever he leaves he was floating a bunch and you can just build a bunch of pylons or build a bunch of overlords and not have to worry about it. Savage Wood's building stuff all over the corner of his base to check for Nidus. Ling Bane, like I said, is very common for a player to try whenever they were set behind, thrown off. Nidus is another thing. The Nidus recently, within the last probably 5 months, has become very popular. It was nerfed and sort of fell off a bit in terms of popularity, but it's very strong. Very irritating if you don't see it coming. And Savage Wood is chasing an Overlord with the Liberator, and this is just a scouting Overlord. Because if we go to structures, there is no Nidus. And this is so annoying whenever you don't have any units that can shoot up, really, as a few Marines have just finished. The Liberator's damage is just so awful. And remember, the Liberator used to just do obscene damage to light units. If you had 3 or 4 Liberators, you could just counter 30 mutas, back before the Liberator was nerfed. A pool is done here for No More. He is starting to mine gas. No way. This is just a terrible idea. Or is it Knobway? No. I mean, it's just terrible. Backdoor. This guy will just sort of say inconspicuous things like backdoor. Like, almost like a retard. Like he's pinging the backdoor like, yeah, backdoor. And like, I know that this guy has been making army, and if I move out with this paltry little tech-heavy force, I'm just gonna get destroyed. So, this guy, as I'm taking my third and powering up after a proxy, wants me to move all my shit out here to this fucking backdoor location and do what? Exactly. Clear this, that'll take like an entire minute, and then he'll be able to make a bunch of stuff and then crush the attack. This is something you have to be wary of in 2v2, is a lot of times if your ally says, oh help me, I'm being attacked, that's fine, that's something you should listen to. But whenever your opponent has, especially when he's been put behind, whenever he has like tactical advice, like oh go, like if they're like behind or bored or upset or think this is just like beyond stupid to take this base. If this guy had just been smart and tried to take his natural, this would have been found. But instead he wants to take one of the most absurdly dangerous bases on the game. Like this is the guy that's left in the game. You want to take one of these bases? Are you fucking serious? And once he sees this, he's going to attack the gold too. This is the opposite of what you want to do. You want to expand on the side of the player that was knocked out. Red Zerg is going to come down here. and basically defend his base from being encroached upon, because frankly this is his little base spot. This was just so foolish to take. And he's going to run down to the base of No Way. But Savagewood is actually going to move his Liberator tank over, and he wouldn't have been able to save the base, but he can really lock down this little area. Of course, the Red Zerg can just run over here and kill it. But Savagewood did knock a decent amount off of the army of Hello. And Savagewood has to be careful because he really doesn't have that much stuff to properly sort of cover this area and this area. This base, of course, is still mining. Creep spread is trying to be established. And Hello is in a pretty good position here. He has 71 workers, plus 26 workers, so it's a little bit odd, but he has a lot of income. Two hidden bases with the gases. So he is on quite a few bases, as you would expect him to take this one relatively soon. No Way is electing to take this gold again. Probably because his spawning pool will die if he doesn't. Liberators are just so much worse at killing overlords than the Viking, it's ridiculous. Another attempted overlord scout is slapped away by Savagewood here, who has 2-1 upgrades, and if we peek at the upgrade tab, Savagewood's doing pretty well. Hello has a lot of trim-ins, you know, the speeds and whatnot, as Savagewood is prodding over here and trying to see which of these bases were taken, because a lot of times, whenever your opponent does have his ally killed, he will just retake his ally's main and natural. Those are usually the first bases to go. On this game, and in this map in particular, your third and fourth whenever you spawn on this side, those are the easy bases to defend though. So it's no surprise that he took those. And if you do have any probes left, your Savagewood does belatedly discover this expansion. He doesn't have many minerals left, he's going to easily kill it. And Savagewood's going to drop the back of the Zerg. This is brilliant play to go in between these two naturals with drops. Not exactly rare, but it's incredibly strong. And Savagewood will kill one of the spores, as Swarm hosts are encroaching upon him and have already retreated. And Savagewood's going to be dealing with that, loses a few of the units but does run the drop back to the natural. Whenever you're facing one person trying to control two different races, doing annoying little finessement harass like this, that people are, look at this, look how pissed this guy is. He's going to build like 15 cannons for one base. Little harassment like this is good. The Savagewood mismicros his drop a bit here, because ultimately look what he caused, and he could have basically stopped this mining too. Stuff was coming obviously, but Savagewood was trying to get all of his units back to these two bases, because oh lordy, things just keep getting worse and worse for Savagewood as Lings run in his main, as the other Lings try to run over and defend the Protoss bases, because for whatever reason ASA had just taken the whole left side of the map, and by ASA I mean ASA's corpse reanimated by Hello, who is shooting his swarm host across the map, but they don't really get to anything in time because the entire army is over here killing ASA's expansions. So this is a really bad feeling in StarCraft whenever you discover a bunch of bases that are like well saturated and have obviously been mining for a long time. I mean, Idril lost a GSL this way. He was one of the favorites to go far in a GSL, and a Protoss hit a base on him. And he kept attacking him and kept trading, and it looked like he was doing pretty well. And then suddenly, boom, what do you know? He had a base the whole time. Now, it's obviously different in 2v2. There's way more of those shenanigans going on, but the point still stands. If you let someone hide a base on you, and you discover that, holy shit, this guy has been mining so much and I didn't even know about it, I thought I was sort of even with him, it can be a bad feeling, is the Red Zerg is going to push into the middle of the map. Savagewood sandwiches him with the bio tank and the Liberators. These Liberators are amazingly sieged up in the middle of the map, this little donut where people will park overlords. I've never really seen units used like this in this aspect. It's interesting to see, as this map has been a map pool for an exceptionally long time. Savagewood brings more Liberators over and then brings down the gauntlet of his bio. Notice that Savagewood does have Liberator range, as well as +1 for his factory and starport units, the old mech units. That's always nice to get the +1 defense. I know a lot of players prefer to rush to whatever 3 attack they want, but I often find myself making both tanks and Liberators, and sometimes in the early game I'm not sure what I need, so I'll just open with the armor, which also works for medevacs, and then you go from there with the offense upgrades. It's never bad to get these upgrades, because ultimately a lot of times you are going to want the +1 defense anyway. The Liberators do sort of take a beating, and if you go into the late game without any Liberator upgrades, it can be rough, as Savagewood pushes into the bottom part of the Zerg base. He does kill one base, which has a lot of eggs coming. Notice that he led with the Liberators, sieged up at one ramp, and then sieged up at the other ramp while he moved the tanks forward. And he's just going to continue to rampage forward with his bio. A lot of Liberators are being pushed back with Corruptors, as a ton of Corruptors have spawned out. And the trick here is with the Marauders and tanks, you want to get as much damage done as possible. You don't want to get in a habit where you're chasing the Corruptors as he makes more stuff. And a lot of Hydra Bane are present here, and Savagewood does siege the Liberators up to try to focus down the air army first before he messes with the Corruptors. Because ultimately, if the ground army survives, the Corruptors aren't really an issue. And the Corruptors are going to be attacked as a Manor Mule goes down, because this is the person who told Savagewood the win last game was 2v1, they did all the work. Meanwhile, siege tanks that reinforce are being sieged on the low ground. Hello leaves, and Hello was defeated, although it was a valiant effort for her to try to hide all these Protoss bases. Whenever you get more siege tanks into your army, it can be very intelligent to just siege them on the low ground whenever you're doing a push like this, because especially in 2v2 when people can be floating crazy money, you know, we've already seen bases over here were hidden, so God knows how much money this guy has. So you want to play it safe, go ahead, you know, you're already fighting, you're already attacking, it's easy to just siege these up on this little lip of the cliff, because then melee units are going to have to run all the way down to get to them, and you're not going to interfere with any of your reinforcements coming up this ramp. It's good to siege tanks sort of on the bottom of these little cliffs as you have an army up top, because it makes the Zerg have to run all the way down and get pummeled with Lings if they want to clean it up a lot of the times. And Lings, as you well know, can't really withstand cannon shots, especially if you have well upgraded tanks, except for more